Marinero, the Sick Podcast. And today was probably the final time we're going to hear from most of the Montreal Canadiens players for at least a couple of months. And they had a chance to speak with members of the media, and so did interim head coach Dominic Ducharme and Montreal Canadiens general manager Marc Bergevin. And joining me right now to recap it all from the Montreal Gazette newspaper and his column, What the Puck, Brendan Kelly. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. How are you, Tony?
I'm doing extremely well. I thought today, out of all the years, was the one day where we got the most out of the Canadiens players, the coach, the GM. Like, we got a lot. And a lot of these guys were emotional. A lot of these guys talked about how much they liked each other. And Brendan, I have to tell you that in previous years, you know, I said to myself, yeah, I hear this song and dance every year. The whole locker room's great bunch of guys. I didn't always believe it. Today, there's a lot of things that I believed.
Well, you know what? And I did hear quite a bit of what was coming out of the Canadiens camp today. And I think you're right. I mean, look, this extraordinary run, this run that no one expected to happen, to make it to the Stanley Cup final for a team that had a pretty sad sack regular season, and the expectations were super low. It really was, because there's no superstars on this team, maybe Carey Price, but there's no superstar skaters. It's a team. And they really have come together, and I've written a couple of times about how it's this really interesting mix of very old players with very young players. And you hear the way they talk. You know, you hear Suzuki talking about what it's like to be playing with Staal and with Perry. And these guys obviously really love each other. You watched how they hugged each other at the end. They really are. I mean, hockey is the ultimate team sport, and these guys went the distance because they're a team. And there is something really special about this group of people. So, you know, that's what's behind this magic run. And I think we could hear that today. I mean, you listen to Josh Anderson, and there's just a warmth in how they talk about the other players, eh?
Yeah. The Sick Podcast, and the show is brought to you by Essentia, the world's only natural memory foam mattress. Go to myessentia.com/sickpod and use code SICKPOD for a free pillow with your purchase. Essentia Beyond Organic Sleep. Cory Perry, I want to talk about him. 36 years old. A lot of people think he needs his sleep. He didn't take too many nights off this year. He was the ultimate gamer, the ultimate competitor. And earlier today, very emotional when talking about the Montreal Canadiens, saying, I already told Marc Bergevin quickly that I'll be back next year playing in the National Hockey League, that I want to be back with the Montreal Canadiens. He loves this team, saying that as he was fighting back tears. Very emotional, Cory Perry.
What a story, eh, Tony? I mean, here's a guy who, there's 31 general managers in the National Hockey League, and only one feels he wants to pick this guy up, and he does, and the guy does that is Marc Bergevin, and he puts him on the taxi squad. It's whatever, I can't remember, 3-4 games into the season, he comes on to the main team. And as soon as he's there, as soon as all of us see him there, we know he's never leaving that position. I mean, amazing at his age. And
if I can, before that, at one point, he has to put him on waivers to clear some cap room and stuff like that. And I thought he was probably going to get picked up, but he didn't. And we found out later, his agent confided that, you know, Cory Perry really wanted to stay with the Montreal Canadiens, and there were two teams that manifested interest, and the agent called them and said, if you respect Perry's career, he wants to stay a Montreal Canadian. So they didn't claim him. Isn't that something?
It really is. And because I don't know if we go, I mean, who knows the what ifs, but do we even go on this run without Cory Perry? Honestly, I mean, I often laugh about the sort of, you know, in the room and all that, but really, Perry's position, you know, when they were down, and they were down 3-1 to Toronto, and they were, you know, down in games to Vegas, you know that he was the guy stepping up to talk to the guys and to inspire them, but also inspire them in the way he was playing. I mean, for, you know, that line of Staal and Perry and Armia, I mean, wow, they might have been the best line on the team on many a night over the course of that run. So wow, that's an amazing pickup. And, you know, playing for minimum wage, basically. So I'm sure hoping he comes back next year. I don't know why he wouldn't. I mean, but he's got to come at a cheap price, because he can't sort of say I had a great year. I got to get a bunch of money, because Mark Bergevin doesn't have a bunch of money.
He doesn't. I don't think money's a problem, though. Do you know how much Cory Perry has made over the course of his career? And I get it. The more you make, the more you want to make. I get that too. But throw a number out there. His career earnings.
You know what? I can't. It's late in the day. I don't know. $20 million.
$88.5 million.
God, he's almost up at your salary level, Tony.
$88.5 million. Yeah, my salary would be more like $8. But anyway, all right, let's move on. That's my problem, not his. Excellent photos. Centrally located close to downtown shopping and universities in Montreal. Ships to all of Canada. Professional staff at the store and online to help you choose the gear you really need. Excellentphoto.ca. If there's a picture that stands out in my head, it's when Eric Staal scored the game-winning goal in overtime in his first game as a Montreal Canadian. You remember that? That was absolutely unbelievable. Eric Staal spoke today. He said that, he wants to be back one more year in the National Hockey League. He loved this team, but he's going to do the right thing for him and his family. All right. Talk about 36-year-old Eric Staal and 36-year-old Cory Perry. Let's talk about them. Perry, do you bring him back?
110%. He's got to come back. That would be a huge disappointment if he's not in a Habs jersey next season.
Eric Staal, do you bring him back?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. All right. You know what?
I honestly don't know what he was doing in the lineup the last few games. I think he was good at first, but Kotkaniemi should have been in there. No question in my mind.
All right. Other things that came up, of course, all the players spoke. Phil Deneau, I want to get to him. If you would place your bets on MyBookie and go to mybookie.ag/the Sick Podcast and use code SickPick for a 50% deposit bonus, bet, win, get paid. My question to you, Brendan Kelly of the Montreal Gazette, is, will Phil Deneau be back as a Hab? And if so, at what number? Deneau said earlier today that the contract talks did take place. They stalled because he thought Suzuki and KK would take his minutes. He admitted that the contract talks stalling also affected his game, but he was able to refocus in the playoffs.
That's a really interesting story. They're clearly and it started in the bubble tournament last summer, right? Where Suzuki and Kotkaniemi stepped up and they kind of took the job away from Deneau. And he was, he publicly expressed his views that he didn't feel that his job was to be a defensive center. And then there was the famous story, which was never confirmed, but seemed like a true story, about them offering him a $30 million contract and him and his agents not agreeing to it. He had a pretty mediocre season, particularly the beginning of the season. He obviously was distracted by this. He was, it's a classic scenario. It happens in any office. The two hot young guys come along and they start muscling in for the older guy's job. But that said, and I was thinking, you know what? He really should have taken this contract because he had such a poor, or at least middling season. But oh my, was he fantastic in the playoffs. But that said, he is a defensive center. I mean, how many times, Tony, did you see Deneau on the ice, on his chest, with his stick, knocking that puck out of the zone? He did everything. He was probably the second most important guy after Carey Price in that run. But that said, he's still not a first-line center. You cannot be a first-line center when you put up those kind of points. And we all know who the first-line center is in the Montreal Canadiens. It's a young guy called Slick Nick Suzuki. So, yes, he's going to be back. The other thing is, I mean, I know you English folks hate to hear about it, but he's the only Quebecois player left. So,
that's for sure. I mean, listen, I know some people are not going to want to discuss it because they're going to say, give me a winning team and I don't care who's on it. But we all know what happened in that one game that the Montreal Canadiens didn't have a Quebec-born player in the lineup. Like, it was le gros scandale ici au Québec. So that can't happen again. But listen, I think Phil Deneau will be back. By the way, I love his answer when he was asked about if he got any endorsement offers from a pizza chain. And he said, I did, but it was the playoffs. It wasn't the time to talk about it. But now that the playoffs are over, now I'm open to discussion because, as you know, there are some players in the National Hockey League who got endorsement deals and followed through on them, and some of them in the Stanley Cup final as well, or at least one of them. You remember that?
So what is it going to be? Boston Pizza? Pizza Hut?
I don't know, but you remember who I'm talking about, right? Does anything ring a bell?
No. Who are we talking about? Are we allowed?
When PK Subban told Sidney Crosby about his breath and
right.
signed a deal with Listerine, or at least I believe he did, because he had Listerine in his locker a couple of days later. But anyway, long story short, let's move on from that. All right. Jake Allen, who talked about he wasn't upset that Carey Price played the entire playoffs because Price is Price, and Price is the guy who got them to the final. Without him, they wouldn't have got there. He said he was there to support Price, to give Price some nights off during the season, to give him a breather, to give him some rest. He'd love to do it again. When he signed his contract extension with the Canadiens, he did it because he wants to remain a Hab, knowing there is a possibility that he gets picked up by Seattle in the expansion draft. But Jake Allen clearly wants to be back, and I'm going to go a step further in telling you that, Brendan, he has to be back. When you spend $10.5 million on Carey Price, with the injuries he's had, you need a very good goalie at a very low price. And Allen is that guy.
Well, I mean, I've said it a few times in the past couple of months in my What the Puck column. The CH are not in the playoffs without Jake Allen. I mean, you remember what happened when Carey missed the whole season, and I don't have the dates in front of me, but when he went down and it was Condon, season was over, and he missed a good chunk of the season. And when he was playing, he had a really, really bad season. So we would have been in last place without Jake Allen. Jake Allen did a great job.
You see, he really is a Canadiens fan. For all of you people that think you're a hater, he's a Canadiens fan.
I know you're not supposed to say that, but my thing's a fan column anyways. And you know what? People who think that I don't like the Canadiens, we had that discussion the other day on the radio. It's absurd. I mean, anyone who reads the columns knows.
You like the Montreal Canadiens. You don't like Marc Bergevin, but you like the Montreal Canadiens.
Marc Bergevin.
You do?
You know what? I really warmed up to him over the playoffs. I honestly did. I think, the thing about Marc Bergevin, it's hilarious, Tony. He's the only general manager like this. They're all so boring. They all look like corporate.
Have you ever had a sit down with him?
What's that?
Have you ever had a sit down with him?
No. You know what? I proposed to our dear friend Paul Wilson, but they're too afraid.
Okay.
I shouldn't say they're too afraid. They probably don't care, but they don't want to make it happen. And I think it'd be great. One of those like really super combative interviews, because you used to be the guy who did that, but you're
I bet you.
Old age, Tony.
I've had several sit downs with him, by the way, and I'm not afraid to say, I think he's a great guy. I really do. Personally, I like him a lot. Okay. And I bet you if you had a sit down with him, I bet you'd like him a lot too.
I think so too.
But humor.
I think we would, we would fight it out, and he would probably, what's everyone saying about Marc Bergevin right now? He's a super passionate guy. Well, I'm a super passionate guy too, though. But I would say what's interesting is what he said today when they said, "What's your future?" And he said, "I'm going to honor the contract." I thought that was really weird.
Okay. So let's get to that. And by the way, sophistication, event rentals, live music, DJs, sound systems, tents, chairs, tables, decor, lighting, photo booth, TV screens. And I bring them up. No, you can't celebrate your Stanley Cup. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But you can celebrate the Euro Cup 2020 or different events that you're going to have with the family throughout the summer. Call them at 514-570-5770. It's your one-stop shop for this kind of thing in Montreal. Marc Bergevin spoke earlier this afternoon, and he was asked about his situation. And he said, I have 1 year left on my contract, and I will honor it. Those words took a lot of people by surprise. A lot of people would have thought Marc Bergevin would have said, I want to be here for a very long time. I came here to win a Stanley Cup. I haven't won one yet. I hope I get the opportunity to do so over the next couple of years, yada, yada, yada. He said that. So now there's a couple of things that are on the table here. One, and in no particular order. One, in a year from now, whether it works out, he's gone and he's going somewhere else.
That's
LA, Anaheim, West Coast, who knows? And I know they have GMs right now as we speak. Two, this is all a question of negotiations. And he wants to hold the upper hand. And this way, he wants to be able to get the deal that he wants. Three, It's been taxing on him, and it's been difficult. And he probably wants to stay, but in another role. Is there, or 4, retire completely from professional hockey? I don't know if I've left something out.
5, become a rock and roll star.
I don't think that's going to happen. That's you. Okay, of the 4, what do you think?
Well, what I think, Tony, is that, you go back to that tweet from, or was it in whatever, but the reporting from Elliot Friedman, I guess, on Hockey Night in Canada, saying that they were in negotiations, Jeff Molson, or they were in talks before the playoffs started. What that said to me, and I really believe this, knowing those 2 guys really well, is that Jeff Molson, I mean, I'm just saying my opinion. We don't know.
Okay. Of course, yeah.
What I think is happening here, Jeff Molson is doing everything he can to keep Marc Bergevin, even before the playoffs started and they had a terrible season. Bergevin remains his man, but Bergevin is unsure. And that's what I think, is he doesn't know what he wants to do. I've heard rumors that he maybe even has, maybe not an offer, but opportunities elsewhere on the horizon. And so he's playing his cards close to his chest, and he's not sure that he wants to remain in Montreal. That's the way I see it. And because the other thing, too, to keep in mind is, yes, it was a fantastic run this year, but what are the next couple of years hold? Yes, there's some exciting young players, but we don't know. It's Dallas was, the Dallas Stars, Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah.
They didn't even make the playoffs the next year. So I don't know if he thinks, he certainly, I'm sure, smart enough to know it's not a no-brainer that they'll be right back in the Stanley Cup Final. So yeah, I think he's keeping all of his options open.
All right, my opinion could change on this, but this is what I think for now anyway. For now, I think 9 years as the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens is like 15 years somewhere else. So he's probably a little bit tired. But if I know Marc Bergevin the way I know him, I don't know him very well. I know him a little bit. This guy wants to win a Stanley Cup as the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, and I cannot see him leaving for another job. Not just yet anyway. Not at the time of this recording, which is Friday, July 9th, 2021. All right. One guy who did walk is Joel Bouchard, who was the head coach of the Laval Rocket. It's been documented. We've talked about it, that he's done a pretty good job with development and developing some of the players so that when they get called up, they're ready for the dance. Bergevin confirmed today that Bouchard could have stayed in Laval. His contract was up. Could have stayed. Could have joined Dominic Ducharme on his staff, but he chose to make a lateral move and go to Anaheim, which means what exactly? Means, does he think he could be the head coach in Anaheim before he could be the head coach in Montreal? Was he offended that he did not become the coach of the Montreal Canadiens when Claude Julien was relieved of his duties? Or did something else happen?
Well, I think that's a super interesting move today and super bad news for the Montreal Canadiens. Player development has probably been their biggest chink in their armor for the past decade under Sylvain Lefebvre. It was an absolute disaster. Joel Bouchard appeared to be really turning this around. So I think that, yes, he didn't see a future with the Montreal Canadiens. I think he looks at the situation. He looks at what's happened in the playoffs. Ducharme, pretty well, certainly you would think, is going to get the head coach job for real. So
for sure.
That's not a place where he's going to get into get that job anytime soon. And also, how well does Bouchard get along with Bergevin? Kind of the same kind of personality. I think they're both big, forceful personalities. They both like the limelight. Dominic Ducharme doesn't like the limelight. You can see.
I could see Joel wanting to run the show because he was a one-man show pretty much everywhere he went. Now, having said that, what remains interesting here is who's going to take over in Laval. Pascal Vincent has a job. Andre Tourigny has a job. You know that it's going to be a French-speaking coach. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I don't know if Alex Burrows wants to be a head coach and he goes down. some people brought up the name Guy Boucher, but others will say that Guy Boucher is a pro coach more so than a development coach, that he wants to win more than he wants to develop, whether that's true or not, whether it's true or false or right or wrong. But anyway, do you have a name?
I don't really have a name. I mean, you mentioned many of the most prominent possibilities. I think it's going to be tough. It's got to be French speaking. No question with this organization, they're not going to have an English speaking coach of the Laval Rocket, and I think it's going to be tough. And it's a really key position. That was one of the biggest problems they had under Lefebvre. So be very interested to see who they come up with.
All right. In ending, last topic on the Montreal Canadiens is the Jonathan Drouin topic. Marc Bergevin saying that he's doing much better, but did not want to speculate or talk about his future. I know it's a touchy subject. He took time off for personal reasons. What does your gut tell you? Will we see Jonathan Drouin with the Montreal Canadiens next season?
No, I don't think so. It's quite an unprecedented situation. I mean, you really don't see this too often, right? Guy just walks away from the team. They go to the Stanley Cup final. He's not there. I mean, and think about that. He's supposed to be a major contributor to this team, an important top six player who could have added a lot to that lineup. We still, and you know what? We can speculate all we want, and people are saying it's depression and the pressure. We don't know that. We do not know what it is that they said he left for personal reasons. That's all we know. I can't see him coming back, and I think it's been a very problematic thing with Drouin from the very first moment he got here. I think his future is finished with the Canadiens, and it's an open question whether he returns to the National Hockey League.
Let's switch gears. Give me a prediction: Italy or England in the Euro Cup final on Sunday?
I see it as England. I mean, I kind of like the idea that they've never won the Euro. They've never even been to the Euro final. I mean, I'm much less of an expert, obviously, than you are. Nice, but so I'm going for England.
This hoodie that I'm wearing, you can pick up at sportbuffshop.com for all of your officially licensed sports apparel and more. Use code SICK15 for 15% off on all of their items. And this one is a royal blue, and it's of the Azzurri and the Italian national team. Brendan, I hope you're going to be wearing one of these in the next couple of days.
I would love
after Italy beats England on Sunday.
I'd love to see that too, honestly, Tony. Let's just enjoy the game.
I hope I see you in either RDP after the game or Little Italy a little bit later on, and I'll treat you to a Cherry River hard seltzer, only 90 calories, no preservatives, natural flavors, now available in Quebec grocery stores and at the beer store. Check it out. It's Cherry River, and I love this one. It's cherry cranberry, black cherry cranberry. You would love this. Hey,
I would.
Enjoy the game on Sunday. This is to the Montreal Canadiens and their very long playoff run, which gave us some great moments. And to Italy and England this Sunday, Brendan Kelly, I say salute.
Salute. Great. Thanks for the invitation, Tony.
Brendan Kelly of the Montreal Gazette. It's the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinero. You can listen to us via the iHeartRadio app and follow us on all social media platforms. Ciao, Brendan.
See you later, man.
Forza Italia.